You know what's interesting about language? Sometimes the smallest sentences carry the biggest meaning. A single phrase can make you sound warm, confident, respectful, calm, or even professional. And in daily life, these tiny expressions often matter more than complicated grammar. Welcome back to the N Podcast English Hub. I'm David, and today we're spending time with practical English phrases that people actually use in everyday situations, not the kind that sit quietly inside a textbook. I mean the phrases people use when they spill coffee on someone's bag, when they need help at a train station, when they misunderstand a coworker, or when they want to sound polite without sounding stiff. We'll explore casual English, polite English, and more formal English. And along the way, I'll show you why certain phrases sound natural in one situation but strange in another. So wherever you are right now, walking home, washing dishes, commuting to work, or pretending to work while secretly listening to podcasts, I'm glad you're here. Let's jump in. Everybody needs at some point. Asking for help. A lot of learners know the sentence, "help me." Grammatically, it's fine. But in daily English, especially with strangers, people usually soften their requests. Instead of saying, "help me," you'll often hear, "could you help me for a second?" Or, "would you mind helping me?" Or even, "I was wondering if you could help me." Now, that last one sounds longer, but English speakers often use longer sentences to sound gentler and less direct. Imagine this situation. You're at a grocery store. You can't reach something on a high shelf. You could say, "Can you get that?" But that sounds a little sharp. A more natural version would be, "Excuse me, could you help me grab that?" Notice the little word, grab. It sounds casual and friendly. Here's another example. A woman is trying to use a ticket machine at a train station, but the screen keeps changing before she finishes reading. She turns to someone nearby and says, "Sorry to bother you, but could you show me how this works?" That opening phrase, "sorry to bother you," makes the request softer immediately. And here's a cultural note. In many English-speaking places, especially in customer service situations, politeness matters a lot. People often add extra softening phrases, even for small requests. For example, "Hi, sorry, could I ask you something quickly?" That sentence is packed with polite signals. Hi, friendly opening. Sorry, acknowledging the interruption. Could I, softer than can I, quickly, reassuring the other person that it won't take long. Tiny details. Big effect. Misunderstandings. Honestly, misunderstandings happen to everyone. Even native speakers say, "what?" or, "wait, I thought you meant something else." The key is knowing how to clarify things naturally. A very useful phrase is, "just to make sure I understand." This phrase gives you time to confirm information politely. For example, "just to make sure I understand, the meeting starts at 9, right?" It sounds careful and professional. Another excellent phrase is, "so what you mean is," example, "so what you mean is, we should send the email today, not tomorrow." This helps avoid confusion without sounding argumentative. Now let's compare two responses. First, "you explained that badly." Ouch. Second, "I think I misunderstood part of it." Much smoother. English speakers often try to reduce tension by placing blame on the misunderstanding itself instead of the person. Here's a short workplace example. A manager says, "We'll need the report by Friday afternoon." Later, an employee says, "Sorry, I just want to clarify something. Do you mean Friday before lunch, or any time in the afternoon?" That sounds organized and respectful, Now imagine a social situation. Someone says, "We should get dinner sometime." And maybe you're not sure if they mean tomorrow, next week, or just sometime in the future. You could smile and ask, "Yeah, definitely. What day were you thinking?" Simple, natural, friendly. And here's something important. When learners panic because they didn't understand something, they often say, "I don't understand you." But sometimes that can sound stronger than intended. Instead, try, "Sorry, I didn't catch that." Or, "Could you say that one more time?" Or, "I'm not familiar with that word." Those phrases sound calmer and more conversational. Let's move into gratitude, one of the easiest ways to sound warm in English. Most learners know "thank you," of course, but native speakers constantly vary how they express appreciation. For something small, you might hear, "Thanks a lot." "Appreciate it." "Thanks, I owe you one." That last phrase means, "You helped me, and someday I'll help you too." Imagine your friend drives across town to pick you up after your bike tire suddenly explodes. You get into the car and say, "Seriously, thanks. I owe you one." That feels personal and genuine. In professional situations, people often say, "I really appreciate your help." Or, "Thank you for taking the time to explain that." Notice how specific gratitude feels stronger than generic gratitude. Compare these. "Thanks" versus "Thanks for staying late to help me finish this." The second one feels more meaningful because it recognizes the effort. Here's another phrase that sounds very natural. That means a lot. For example, "My neighbor brought soup when I was sick. Honestly, that meant a lot." Now let's talk about tone for a second. If someone gives you a tiny favor, like handing you a pen, and you say, "I'm deeply grateful for your generosity." Well, technically correct, but dramatically too much. English speakers usually match their emotional level to the situation. Small favor, small response. Big kindness, bigger response. That balance helps speech sound natural. There's many levels of directness. Imagine you're hot and sitting near a window. Direct. Open the window. Polite, casual. Could you open the window? Even softer. Would you mind opening the window? And very indirect. Do you think we could open the window a little? Indirect language is extremely common in English, especially in workplaces or among people who don't know each other well. Now here's something funny. Sometimes English speakers don't even sound like they're making a request. For example, "It's a little cold in here." Depending on the situation, this might secretly mean, "Please close the window." This kind of indirect communication can confuse learners because the real meaning hides inside the comment. Let's do another example. Imagine roommates. One roommate walks into the kitchen and sees dishes everywhere. Instead of saying, "You need to wash these dishes," they might say, "Hey, do you think you could take care of the dishes sometime today?" Much softer. The relationship stays peaceful, and in professional settings, indirect language can sound more cooperative. Instead of, "Send me the file," people often say, "Could you send me the file when you get a chance?" That final phrase, "when you get a chance," removes pressure. Of course, sometimes it still means, "Please send it soon," but the tone sounds kinder. A lot of learners only use "I'm sorry," and yes, that works, but English has many shades of apology. For small accidents, "Oops, sorry." For interrupting someone, "Sorry to interrupt." For arriving late, "Sorry, I'm running late." For mistakes at work, "My mistake." Or, "That's on me." "That's on me." is interesting because it means I accept responsibility. Example, the wrong document got attached to the email. That's on me. Calm, mature, professional. Now here's something cultural. In some English-speaking countries, especially the UK and Canada, people apologize very frequently. Someone bumps into you and says, sorry. You bump into them. And also say, sorry. Sometimes two people apologize at the same time for existing in the same hallway. Language is funny, but over-apologizing can happen too. If a waiter brings your food and you politely say, sorry, could I get some water? That's normal, but if every sentence begins with sorry, you may sound nervous or uncertain. Confidence and politeness can exist together. Try this balanced version. Excuse me, could I have some water when you have a moment? Very polite. No unnecessary apology. This is one area where learners often sound too absolute. For example, I hate coffee. Maybe you really do hate coffee. Fine. But often people simply mean they prefer tea. English speakers frequently soften opinions to sound friendlier in conversation. Instead of, I hate crowded restaurants, you might hear, I'm not really a fan of crowded restaurants. Or, I usually prefer quieter places. That sounds smoother socially. Let's imagine two co-workers discussing lunch. One says, there's a spicy noodle place nearby. The other replies, ooh, I'm actually more in the mood for something light today. That phrase, in the mood for, is extremely useful. Examples, I'm in the mood for pizza. I'm not really in the mood to go out tonight. Natural, common, conversational. Another helpful phrase, I'd rather. Example, I'd rather take the train than drive. And if you want to sound less strong, I tend to prefer. Example, I tend to prefer working early in the morning. This sounds thoughtful instead of forceful. Important. Let's start with meetings. Suppose someone is speaking for a very long time and you need to add something. Interrupting directly can sound rude. Instead of, you're wrong, or, stop, you could say, could I jump in for a second? Or, can I add something here? Professional? Smooth? Respectful. Now imagine you disagree with someone. A direct version. That won't work. A softer version. I'm not sure that approach would work in this situation. See the difference? The second version sounds collaborative instead of confrontational. English speakers in workplaces often soften disagreement intentionally. Another useful phrase. That makes sense, but... This phrase acknowledges the other person before introducing a different idea. Example. That makes sense, but maybe we should also consider the budget. Very natural workplace English. Now let's move into social situations. Imagine someone invites you somewhere, but you can't go. Some learners say, no, I can't. Not terrible, but slightly cold. More natural responses include, I'd love to, but I already have plans. Or, that sounds great, but I'm going to have to pass this time. Or even, rain check. A rain check means, not now, but maybe another time. Example, tonight's impossible for me. Rain check. Short, friendly, casual. Now here's a memorable situation. Imagine your friend cooks dinner for the first time in years. Unfortunately, the pasta is so salty it tastes like ocean water. You do not want to say, this is terrible. Instead, many English speakers soften criticism. Maybe, the sauce is a little stronger than I expected. Or, I think a bit less salt next time could work really well. Politeness often matters more than perfect honesty in casual social situations. That balance is part of sounding natural. Actually, Learners hear this word constantly, but it can be dangerous if used carelessly. For example, "You're wrong," compared with "Actually, I think the train leaves at 6. Here, "actually" softens correction slightly, but tone matters a lot. If someone says, "I love pineapple on pizza," and you reply, "Actually, pineapple doesn't belong on pizza." Well, now it sounds argumentative. So, "actually" can sound helpful or annoying depending on delivery. Another small but powerful word is just. English speakers use it constantly to soften sentences. "I just wanted to ask." "I'm just checking." "I just thought I'd let you know." "I'm just checking." These phrases reduce pressure and sound less demanding. But again, balance matters. Too many softeners can make speech weak. You don't need to apologize for every opinion. Natural English often sits somewhere between directness and kindness. Dramatically improve your spoken English. First, notice tone, not only vocabulary. Many learners memorize phrases but ignore emotional feeling. Compare these. "What?" versus "Sorry." Same basic meaning, completely different feeling. Or "move" versus "Could I get by for a second?" Language is emotional music, not just grammar. Second, collect phrases in groups. Instead of memorizing random sentences, learn families of expressions. For clarification, "Sorry, I didn't catch that. Could you repeat that?" Just to make sure I understand. For polite requests, "Would you mind?" "Could you possibly?" When you have a moment. This helps your speech become flexible and natural. And here's a challenge for you this week. Choose 3 phrases from today's episode. Only 3, and use them in real life. Maybe at work, maybe online, maybe ordering coffee, maybe messaging a friend. Language becomes real when it leaves your notebook and enters your life. Before we go, let's do a quick recap. Today, we explored how small English phrases shape conversations. We looked at asking for help politely, clarifying misunderstandings, expressing gratitude naturally, making requests without sounding harsh, apologizing with confidence, sharing preferences smoothly, and handling workplace and social situations with the right tone. And maybe the biggest lesson is this. Fluent English is not only about big vocabulary. Very often it's about tiny choices. A softer phrase, a warmer tone, a clearer question, a thoughtful response. Those little adjustments can completely change how communication feels. Thanks for spending part of your day here with me on the N Podcast, English Hub. I hope today's episode gave you phrases you can actually carry into your daily conversations. Take care of yourself, keep listening closely to real English around you, and remember, every small conversation is practice. I'm David, and I'll talk to you again soon.